Hi, Jason. Glad to have you here today on this first interview on the Reset with Renee podcast. Um, and I know that you and I have already talked previously, so we've had some interesting conversation, and I'm really looking forward to having you share of some of your recent learning and also just some of the wonderful things you have in your personhood and on your heart in this podcast today. So I think it'll be good stuff, and I want to jump into that. And before I get to questions, I just wanted to see if you could share with me and the listeners a little bit about where you are in the world so people could
Yeah,
imagine that. Yes.
sure, Renee. So thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm excited for this opportunity to share my journey in life and anything good that's come from that journey in life. I always just want to share that to help someone else's journey be that little less fraught, that little less difficult, and that little
Yes.
bit more joyous and uplifted. So anything that I can do, to share in that way, that's what I'm here for. So yeah, so geographically, I'm in a little place called Ocean Shores, the one of the most famous places in New South Wales. Okay, so this is New South Wales, Australia. One of the most famous places in Australia is Byron Bay. Almost everybody's heard of Byron Bay, sometimes notoriously. So I'm about 15 minutes north of Byron Bay, about an hour south of the Queensland border. So that's where I'm located. So generally it's warm. Outside the door here there are palm trees and a view over the ocean. So yeah, it's a beautiful location. On occasion, just recently we actually had whales coming by. So people go out and they watch the whales. So yeah, I think it's a special part of the world, and I'm very glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. Thank you. That helps to have that anchoring of where you are. Awesome. Okay, well, part of our story is connecting randomly on social media. I know we connected initially on Facebook. I'm just making comments to another person's post. And we were talking about male and female energy. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I loved and appreciated your openness to dialogue and asking questions for clarification and just that connection right off the bat. So that's for the listeners, that's kind of how this got started, just a friendly connection online, which I think is awesome about good part about social media these days, that you can connect with people from literally across the world. Um, and one of the things that you shared with me in our first conversation, um, was about your ebook, about the program you're doing. I think you're gearing it towards men, higher love leadership. And I know that you're really passionate about the training that you've done with William Whitecloud. And I know you just finished a 4-day training. So I'd love for you to kind of jump in with any of that about what's your path been with getting into this work? What drew you to it, and what keeps you going with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that the way into this whole work was actually vulnerability. The way into this whole work was discovering Brené Brown. So a little bit about my background. So in my early 30s, I went to see the Dalai Lama give a public talk in Melbourne, because I'm from Victoria originally in Australia. And he was giving a public talk, and then he gave a 4-day teaching, A Teacher's Lamp on the Path to Enlightenment. And I attended that 4-day talk. And
What an
just at the end of
opportunity.
it was an amazing opportunity, because you see the real Dalai Lama, not the public Dalai Lama, so to speak. And like, in the sense that when he's giving teachings, you're in the presence of someone who's a real powerhouse. He was like a little volcano. And also just the amount of clarity and just exposition, just he'd take like one phrase and then spend ages to, unpack the depth of and the meaning behind that one phrase. And then towards the end of the 4 days, he's starting to talk about the actual path to enlightenment. And I'm just getting really excited because I'm actually hearing something deep in my heart recognizes there's truth here. And I get really, really excited. And anyway, so eventually I start to go to a Buddhist center, and I'm happier there than I've ever been in my entire life. And so then I go from there to actually driving 3,600 kilometers. I break up with my girlfriend. Don't do that. Don't follow the spiritual path by breaking someone's heart. It's not a good start to the spiritual life. Number one lesson, don't do that. So apart from that, I sell the house, sell the car, get a cheap car, drive 3,600 kilometers across the Nullarbor to Western Australia, ordain as a Buddhist monk. I spent a month in training, ordained as a Buddhist monk with a very powerful, famous, and amazing monk called Ajahn Brahm, who I met and did a retreat with in Victoria. That's why I gained faith with him. So anyway, so fast forward. So I spent nearly 11 years in training in 2 different Buddhist monasteries in Australia. I was in robes as a Buddhist monk nearly 10 years. And whilst I was at the second monastery, I listened to Brené Brown, and I realized that I had not been, well, what she said was, when you numb the difficult emotions, you also numb joy.
Yes.
And I was like, that's why. That's why my life is a little bit flat, and I'm not experiencing the moments of joy and bliss and celebrating life and holding life as precious. Instead, I'm holding on to life as if it's something tight and fragile, and I'm living life as in a tight and fragile way. And Brené Brown taught me vulnerability.
Yes, I'm like in my head thinking, yes, that constriction that I saw you gesturing with, right? And I can imagine that there's control with that comes with that. I know there is for me. That's an ongoing journey and process to let go, open, allow things to unfold. And my background, my master's is in social work. I'm a licensed social worker, and Brene Brown's a social worker, so I'm a fan of her work as well. And it doesn't cognitively make sense. In practice, it's much more difficult.
Yeah,
the vulnerability.
That's the thing. And one thing that I had to become vulnerable to continue. I'm going to give a long answer to the first question, and the whole hour is going to be spent just on this one thing. But we
could have a whole podcast just on your history, right?
We could easily, actually, because we haven't even started. But this is the core of the whole thing. Yeah, it was how I got into the work, because I had such high levels of self-loathing. Truly high levels of self-loathing. Like, there was one time I developed a fair amount of awareness of my mind as a monk. You do have a lot of time to watch what's going on in there.
Yes.
And so there was one time later in life where I did something, whatever it was, X stupid thing that I did, and my mind went literally into a shame spiral. And just from that silly thing, it just spiraled down to a point where in my own mind and being, I just didn't deserve to live. I was just such a twisted, failed example of a human being.
That sounds swampy.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We can get sucked down. And if we haven't got the experience of watching our minds and knowing that we're not our minds, so that's one thing that can be powerfully put across here. You are your heart, but you are not your mind.
Yes.
that if you believe the products of your own mind, you'll be sucked down and you'll be held down as if you've gone into to have a swim, and then a big currents come along, and big waves come along, and it's dumped you on the bottom of the ocean, and you don't know up from down. That's what will happen if you believe the product of your own mind. So yeah, so when I was in that state, the teachings from the Buddha helped me to find love.
Mm.
And they helped me to find love because there are 4 states of mind, and mind and heart are the same word in Buddhism, because the chitta, the awareness, it's the awareness of the heart. So there are 4 states in the heart of a fully enlightened being.
Can you share?
Oh, yes. So the first is loving kindness or loving friendliness. The second, which is metta. The second is karuna, which is compassion. The third is mudita, which is appreciative joy.
Mm.
And the fourth is equanimity.
Mm-hmm.
And so what this taught me, what this teaching powerfully teaches me every moment of every day, is that when you look in the world and you see the harm and you see the destruction and you see the hatred and you see the outright stupidity, what the Buddha teaches is that present in the heart is delusion as to what is happiness, true happiness, and what is not. And in the presence of that, we think, well, it's for my happiness to hurt you. It's for my happiness to take this and deprive it from you. But that's illusion or delusion. And that underneath every black, hateful thing and hurtful thing you've ever experienced or ever heard,
mm-hmm.
is love. Because you can clear it all away through enlightenment, and you can find appreciative joy at the spiritual growth of another. You can find compassion. Mm-hmm. You can find where every being is a friend, loving friendliness. Mm-hmm. And you can find equanimity, where your mind is not up one moment and down the next, but it's constant, because it's just witnessing life. It's just receiving life. So that was my first and perhaps my most powerful lesson in love was those teachings of the Buddha. And one reason why that was a powerful lesson in love, well, I can go on. We can spend a whole podcast just on love. Easily.
Yes.
But one reason that was a lesson in love was twofold. One is that loving kindness in the Metta Sutta, in the teachings of the Buddha, mm-hmm. it's a love that has no boundary. So it goes through all time and space to all beings everywhere. And so just this understanding, even cognitively, even rationally, mm-hmm. my mind, my heart is capable of limitless love, unconditional love. Just even the idea that could be so was mm-hmm. like a counterweight to the self-hatred and the self-loathing. Yes. And then the other aspect was that even though I could be subject to self-hatred and self-loathing, because that's my mind, mm-hmm. there was a moment. I think I just went to I'd left the monkhood. I think I just was going to a pool where I worked, because I would maintain the pool, and mm-hmm. there was I can't remember what, there was some creature in the pool, like drowning, struggling, and I felt my heart leap up. Mm-hmm. Leap up. I felt this movement in my chest, mm-hmm. this response. Mm-hmm. And so that is a literal physical living of compassion, of the movement of the heart in response to the suffering of another, is compassion.
Yes.
So that was a beautiful lesson in love. And then when I left the monkhood, I'd been gifted with the development of a capacity which I'd needed for myself. And this is a whole, we can spend hours even just talking about this, on the path of self-healing, because I had a lot of difficulty physically, because I had some scoliosis, some curvature of the spine. So I would have back pain, I'd have shoulder issues, and so forth and so on. And I was gifted one day on my walking path with the capacity for self-healing, where I put my hand on on my arm. Suddenly all this peace started to come through my body, and the muscles started to relax, and I started to tune into my breath, and I'm like, whoa. And then a little bit later, I realized maybe I don't need to touch my arm. Maybe I just need to hold my hand. Oh, I hold my hand above my arm. Oh, I have those feelings. And then I developed the ability to take that and, work with other people and so forth. And then when I left the monastery, I'm like, well, what do I actually want to do in life? And I didn't become this, for reasons that can take a whole other podcast to discuss. But what I trained as was a quantum touch practitioner. So quantum touch is, it's a life force energy healing modality. Richard Gordon is just an extraordinary, wondrous human being, a shining light of what a human being should and can be. And so Richard Gordon, the founder of Quantum Touch, he developed this healing modality, and it's based on love.
Fascinating. I love it.
It's literally based on love. So the teachings of the Buddha gave me one counterpoint to self-loathing, and it pointed to the nature of reality, which is that I'm not my mind, I am my heart. Although the Buddha would never say you are anything, but that's a whole other podcast to discuss that. But suffice to say, we have a heart, don't believe your mind, and in your heart is love. And then quantum touch, teaching me the power of love to literally heal. And so Richard Gordon has an astonishing phrase, which I hold in my heart to this day.
Let's hear it.
And that is, that your pain is deeper than you want to know. Your love is deeper than you can know. It's so beautiful, because again, it's illustrating, okay, this hurt, there's all this drama and terror and fear and horror in the world. And deeper than that is love. Everything is a surface illusion, and underneath is the truth, and that's love. So again, that was a powerful counterpoint to that. And then
can I jump in and share something with you?
Please, yes.
Okay. So I'm rereading a book right now. It's called Becoming Safely Embodied, BSE. I think it's Deidre Fay. Haven't gone online to look at her stuff yet, but the book is fascinating and so simple in the concepts, right? But hard to do under conditioning. And so as you're talking, as you've been speaking, that's where my mind keeps going back to, because she talks about, the loving kindness, meditation, how to do little doses of connection with yourself, with your body, out of your head to your body. And so that's what I hear in what you're saying, is that connection. Everybody has that socialization in their mind. And I so relate to the shame spiral and the self-loathing. I've experienced that. My clients have experienced that. I think that's part of humanness. It can be really, really bad for some people. So I'm glad you named that. And then the antidote, I hear you naming the antidote is that awareness, that connection. And then, like you said, the way I think about it, the healing is in the connection. Dropping back down into your spirit and your heart, connection with others. So far, those are just a few brain fires I'm getting as I'm listening to you.
I just value hearing that so much, because that was another aspect of my journey. You know, the American Indian saying that the longest journey you'll ever make is the journey from your head to your heart.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when you live that journey, you realize it's a little bit longer than you thought it was when you set out.
Yes.
Because we kind of lose the way to our heart, you know, every day, and have to re-find it. But the way to the heart is in the present moment, and you can't be present unless you're in your body as an embodied experience of life.
Yes.
And I'll just say quickly, I discovered a lot of trauma in my body as I went on my journey. So as a monk, I certainly discovered a lot of trauma in my body. And many of your listeners, because of their interest in mental health and well-being and flourishing, some of your listeners will be afraid, and they'll be afraid to come into their bodies, because in their bodies is where the scary thing lives. But
Absolutely. Yes.
you'll be paying the price that I paid for years, which is where someone who's very knowledgeable and at the time was a dear and loving friend to me said to me that I had a flat affect. So the affect, the emotional expression of me, was flattened because I'd numbed out what I
Yes.
didn't want to feel. And
Yes.
then what needs to be powerfully expressed here is that you have the capacity to experience what it is you need to experience, let go what it is you need to let go, because you have the capacity to be loved, to experience that connection, you know, that you so beautifully spoke about, Renee, because the connection is to ourselves, but the connection is to our higher truth, our higher self. And that's the next aspect of what I'll speak about in a moment. And that connection is with all of life. And the connection to yourself, the connection with all of life, and the connection with your higher self, your higher truth, the divine universal intelligence, God, the one heart. All of that lives through the gateway of embodied presence. And if you look up the work of somebody like Peter Levine and somatic experiencing, or Hakomi as well, but what Peter Levine speaks so beautifully is your capacity to experience your own trauma. But what you must do is do it in a way where they call it titrating. So you become resourced in your capacity to feel safe. And in your resourcing, you can then swing just a tiny bit into the challenging states. And your body wants to let them go. Your body does not want to hold on to them. Your body wants to let them go. The energy wants to move. The muscles want to shake and tremor and let it out. And so if you, with someone experienced or someone loving, can find a way to be resourced in connection, resourced in connection,
Yes.
so that you can then just dip into a little bit of the trauma, let it release, come back out to your safe place. And Renee can, you know, guide you through all of that. So I'm sure if you reach out to Renee, she will lovingly guide you home.
Yes, I'm so glad to hear you say that. The whole piece that you said, both chunks, it's like a reset. It's a reset. Coming back to your heart is a reset. But yes, I was in training this week, and one of the articles we read was somatic experiencing, which I know about, but just those little I say little, all these things sound little and simple, but they're so complex and so deep when you can put them in practice. The paying attention and orienting, just when even that gets thwarted, which it can at any point in our development, young infants up through the adult years, and we won't necessarily know that cognitively. You can just have felt experiences of it. And the other piece you mentioned, that I think is important to emphasize, is that people do avoid their internal world, their body, their thoughts, even because it's so overwhelming. And then when they do begin to sort of dip into it, do that titration and pendulation, it's a lot to handle when you're not used to it. And so that co-regulation piece is what I heard you naming is super helpful. And
Yeah.
I like to reflect that back to you. I think you do a good job with that. I mean, even in our first conversation, that was a piece that was like, oh, he's safe. I can be
Yes.
vulnerable. He can handle it. He can hold it. And I think more people need more experiences of that as well.
Yes. Being with another in a way where you're just receiving them. I mean, the way I want to move to the
Yes.
next phase of the journey, because there's a lot of powerful stuff there. But I'll just say that what we learn in quantum touch is that as the practitioner, we step into love
Mm-hmm.
because that's the highest vibration. And what happens is that when you have a higher vibration and then you have the client's lower vibration,
Mm-hmm.
what happens is that in the presence of those two vibrations, the lower vibration entrains and raises to
Yes.
match the higher vibration. And then the loving universal intelligence of the client brings about whatever healing is necessary.
Yes.
And so,
The
yeah, I
resource
just
is
wanted,
there.
yeah.
Yes.
So I just wanted to speak to
I love that.
that happens energetically, but it also happens in a nerve at the level of the nervous system. So if you look at Feldenkrais, but a one-on-one Feldenkrais, not a group Feldenkrais. When you have a one-on-one session with a Feldenkrais practitioner, their nervous system is teaching your nervous system throughout the whole session that you have with that practitioner. So part of unwinding the tension in your body to come to a place of love and a place of stillness is to be with those who already are walking the path, who can represent the loving space, the calm hand to hold yours, and the voice. Because a part of being resourced is to be able to relax into someone else's presence. And the voice is very key in that journey as well. So yeah, I just wanted to add those points
I'm glad you
to
did.
our discussion. So yeah, so the next part of the journey for me was sitting there one day, doing all these courses like Mind Valley and all these other courses on Mind Valley and other places, doing the whole personal development journey. Because what I did as a monk was I tried to become some kind of Superman, where I'm like, I'm going to get rid of all of this anxiety that I'm suffering. I'm going to straighten out my body. I'm going to become big and strong and straighten out my body and get rid of anxiety and get enlightened. And I'll be like some kind of Superman walking around on the earth. And so
Sounds like
when I
something a
was
therapist would say. Can't relate at all. No, not at all. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, well, I mean, it's only natural, that in the face of all of the garbage that we're tripping over as we're walking, that we'd want to just jump up in the air and fly over it all, And I spent a long time just trying to fly, and then I'd end up face first in the garbage, and I'm like, oh, that didn't work. So yeah. And so I was just doing all this self-development, to fix myself, to take everything that I thought was wrong, to make it better. So when I started to develop enough wisdom in my heart that I could benefit another, I was then like, okay, no one's going to listen to me because of the way that I look, because of the way that I speak, because of this, because of that. I've got to fix all of these things. I still have anxiety. I can't be someone with anxiety if I'm going to be helping people live an amazing life. So I've got to fix the anxiety. So there I am. I'm doing all these courses. At one time, I was doing 5 courses at once. And on YouTube, Christopher Michael Duncan pops up, Chris Duncan. And he's the founder of something called Magnetic Mind. And he's playing this little video on YouTube. And I'm going, I do not need another course. There's nothing that you can show me that will persuade me that I need another course right now.
Sounds very familiar. Yes, carry on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what does he do? He takes 2 lovely women on stage in public on the Gold Coast who have a terror of public speaking. He does a super conscious rapid recode and no more terror of public speaking. And I'm like, that's powerful. Okay. Let me look into this a little
I'm
more.
interested. Yes.
I'm interested. So I looked into it. I went on the first level of the experience that he offers, where I had, you get the bonus where you can get a coach. And the first experience that I had was like, oh my God. It was so powerful. And so Christopher's mentor, one of, is William Whitecloud. So I've done all of Chris's work. Now I've done all of William's work. And the core message from Chris, and the title of his book, is you're not broken. You see, so this is the third component or aspect to this whole journey as a counterpoint to the hatred and the self-loathing, is that we come into this world, our human journey is that we come into this world as a pure creative spirit. We come into this world connected through all time and space with everything, because we come into this world divine. We come into this world as the creator is, as God is, as universal intelligence is, as spirit or source, however you want to call it. We come into this world deeply in touch with that. We come into this world as that, but we need to be having a human experience, an individual separate experience, if we're going to have an experience, because something that's in touch through all time and space, it's not differentiated. There's no real capacity for experience. If we're going to learn and grow, we need to come into humanity. We need to be this little, small, separate, vulnerable being. And it's a whole other podcast to talk about this, but suffice to say that if you come in as that, you're going to end up getting a little wounded, because we need the validation, the love, the energy from our caregivers.
Protection.
Yeah, for our very literal survival, because we're wee small little beings.
Yep.
And we don't get, at some point along the journey, when we start to realize that we're separate, we don't get that love. We don't get that validation in the way that we need it, and in the way that validates our experience of ourselves as little divine gods and goddesses. We're in touch with the transcendent, but the caregiving that we're getting is not validating our experience of ourselves as that. And so we take on a wound. And the wound is some variation on, I'm not worthy, I'm not perfect, I'm not significant, I'm not capable. You know, some of these kinds of wounds, I'm not good enough.
Yes.
One of these flavors of wounds we take on because we believe as little ones that everything is about me. We don't have the capacity when you're 2 or 3 or 4 to really take the perspective of another.
Right.
And so if I'm hurting, ouch, I'm not getting the love. If I'm not getting the love, it must be about me. There has to be something wrong with me. So what is wrong with me? Oh, well, I'm not perfect. If I was perfect, I would get the love. I'm not worthy. If I was worthy, I would get the love. This wound runs your life, and it ran mine, and it runs anybody's who hasn't woken up to the truth which is living in your heart.
So true to that. I often say it's part of our recovery as adult humans is, can we be authentic? We all need attachment and connection and relationship. Can we do that from that true, authentic place? And there's a coming home, I think, that a lot of people, a process they have to kind of move through so that they can do that. Yeah, and that's part of the questions that you asked me when in our first talk. It's sort of like, oh yes, reset, heart, back to heart, go back to truth, and that's an ongoing process.
It's
A reset.
so an ongoing process. So being little expressions, being human expressions of the Creator, we have this capacity for creation, and that lives in our heart and in our connection with the transcendent, our connection, if you like, with our higher self.
Yes.
So our capacity for creation is through our connection to our higher self, which can never be broken, which is never turned off or damaged. It's always there, but there's a gateway that most people don't go through to be able to get to that connection.
And that's where the shame comes in. As I was reading in the book last night, again, it's refreshing my mind, and it ties into that vulnerability and shame piece that Brene Brown does such a good job of talking about. When as children, our needs aren't met by our caregiver, consciously or unconsciously, we protest as part of our biological conditioning and relational conditioning. And when that protest fails, to your point, there's nothing else for us to do but to turn it inward and to be helpless and to have overwhelm connect to that helplessness, which is part of the shame spiral that people experience in adulthood or as children, over the years, until that becomes more clear that it's not their brokenness. There is a wound, but they're not broken. There's nothing wrong with them. They are inherently lovable. Some of the points that you were explaining.
Yes. Yeah. And through the work of Chris Duncan and through the work of William Whitecloud, to me, it's kind of like the ultimate counterpoint to self-loathing, self-hatred, and so forth, because I have an ego, and the ego is what's taken, what's developed a wounded state. But then I have a connection to the higher self, which is limitless, which is perfect, which is pure, which is throughout all time and space. And in our work, we live that and live from that. And when I speak, I don't plan what I'm going to speak.
This is true. This is true. Yes.
And what comes out is perfect, because I'm a conduit for that love, for that higher creator. I believe of myself that I live in service. And part of living in service is to get out of the way enough to just let through what needs to come through in the moment, because it doesn't come from me, it comes through me. And every human being has that capacity, because every human being is always and forever in touch with their higher self. So I just want to add
I want you to
a
highlight
little,
that. Can we pause right there for a second?
yeah,
What you were saying there, really how I heard it was like, okay, you can be in constriction and control. Like, I mean, even as we were preparing for our podcast meeting today, you know, I have my list of questions, you have my list of questions, right? And I said, we might go off script. I don't know, but we have a guide. So yes, there's a part of me that wants to be planful and cover the things that I'd like for everybody to have access to, right? And stepping out of that and being in the moment. And I really want to reflect back to you. I think that is just, you know, our first conversation was a 3-hour conversation, right? And it was just, we didn't have a plan or agenda. It was just like, it just flowed and there was connection and whatever happened next. So, not everyone has had the benefit of that level of interaction with you. So I wanted to definitely reflect that back, is what a gift to be able to have for yourself, but also then to give your presence and openness to others.
yeah,
Refreshing.
and I receive what you're saying, and I deeply appreciate hearing it. And I'll just say that, you know, in my experience, when I would do work as a quantum touch practitioner, the session would inevitably be much longer than I planned for, because when you step into being of service and you're just allowing through what needs to come through, time doesn't become relevant anymore, and the pressures of daily life don't become relevant anymore, because you're just there with that other in service too, therewith in service too. And in that place can come a love and a connection which is just exquisite. And sometimes I would contact something through being with that client in an energetic way that would just bring tears to my eyes, because somehow I would connect to God, or to the divine. It was and it is, you know, a beautiful experience. So I wanted to highlight something, because I believe that there's another woman doing work in the world that is as powerful as what Renee does, and that also helps us to bring us home to our joy, just like Renee. And this is Lisa Miller.
Okay.
So Lisa Miller is a psychologist, quite a senior figure in psychology world, and she is doing amazing work on the inborn spirituality of human beings. So she's been studying together with colleagues all over the world for the last 15 years that we're born, you see, because as I was saying, you know, we're born, we come into this world as a perfect, pure, creative spirit, and then take an individual existence and develop wounds. Lisa Miller has, you know, academic and scientific demonstration of the truth of that, so that, you know, through MRI and whatever other means, to show that biologically, physically, in our nervous system, we're born connected to the transcendent. And so her first book is called, I'll just hold it up here, it's called The Spiritual Child.
Lisa Miller.
And what, yeah. and she has some beautiful talks on that you can find, on YouTube. And what she's found is that there's only one factor that's highly protective against depression, highly protective against substance abuse, that correlates very powerfully with thriving in childhood. Only one factor.
Let's
And
hear it.
that is connection with the transcendent. Having a personal relationship with the transcendent is the single most protective factor against depression and anxiety and substance abuse and all of the traps that we fall into as children, as we grow. So this was a recent and very beautiful discovery and another validation of the truth of my journey, which is that we are love. We're born as love, and the human journey is to return to love.
Yes. Well said. I love it. It is really the release of the conditioning.
Yeah.
Sounds simple. It's the journey.
It sounds simple. It does. And it sounds simple because that's our mind's just experiencing something in a shallow way. And so what I would say to the listeners is it needs to be lived.
Yes.
And so in living, we discover that we're continually falling asleep and waking up and falling asleep and waking up. And so William Whitecloud, who I now consider a mentor because I've done all of his work, what he says is that a powerful creator, because when we step into our hearts, we develop the capacity to create what it is that we would truly love. And that's, if you like, our purpose or how we live purposefully in the world is creating what we would truly love. And so who is a powerful creator? Is a powerful creator someone who's always awake and always in their heart? And William says no. A powerful creator is someone who wakes up quickly when they've fallen asleep.
They catch it.
Because who catches it? Because we're always falling back into this ego delusion. And I don't want to say that ego is bad, because it's our vehicle of orientation in this world. It's how we navigate this world. It's who we know ourselves to be. And
I
so
would say to add to that, it's like our socialization, our conditioning, and then to throw some clinical speak at it, right? It's like our adaptive functioning. Positive, negative, or neutral. Sometimes it's helpful coping and sometimes it's hurtful coping, but it's still trying to tend to a wound or meet a need, even if it's a sideways or upside down way of doing it sometimes. So
I think thinking of it as adaptive functioning is so powerful, because if you take the larger framework of coming into life as a creative spirit in touch with the transcendent, and then taking an individual existence, well, how are you going to adapt to that change? And I mean, here's Lisa Miller saying, we truly, academically, scientifically, in the laboratory, find that we are connected to the transcendent by our very nature as human beings.
Yes.
And so how do we adapt from going from that place into this small, tight and constrictive little box of humanity? Well, we adapt because we need love, we need validation, We need the energy of our caregivers to be directed to us. And so, yeah, the ego is our way of adapting. It's our way of orienting, as William says, in the world, so that we can navigate our existence. But it's akin to getting in your car and going for a drive, right? Okay, so you're in your car, you're going for a drive, you're on one of those windy roads that overlooks the ocean, and you're high up, and you've got lots of glass in your car, so you can look out and you can see the ocean, you can see the magnificence of the view, and you can see all that's out there, and you're in your car and you're driving along. The ego is akin to believing that you can never get out of your car and experience the view.
Well said. You know, I love your metaphors. I'm glad you expand on that. Yeah.
That just came to me spontaneously.
Love it.
Right? Because being present.
Yes. Yes. I love memes. I save memes as photos, and I have a series of them running through my mind right now. You know, have one. It's an image in my mind of a woman. She's in a cage, like a domed cage, you know, and didn't know you could just step out of you could lift the cage up and just move on. So it really speaks to that.
It
that
does,
idea.
and that yeah,
we keep ourselves stuck.
We do, and that seems like a natural segue into some other aspects of what you wanted to speak about, one of which is the power of the archetype. So, because there's layers of connection to the transcendent, and one way in which the transcendent speaks to us is, you know, through our unconscious, our subconscious, and the language of the unconscious or the subconscious, the language of what's below the surface of our conscious awareness is symbolic. And so if we, through stories, are in touch with the layer of our consciousness which is symbolic, we can step into our larger life. So because, you know, one way in which that woman can lift the cage is to change how she identifies. So yes, I am this ego self with this personality formed in this way. But I'm also the rainbow, I'm also the sky, I'm also the ancestor drumming and beating her feet on the earth. You know, I'm also every woman who ever birthed, you know, in the world, in her darkened hut surrounded by her sisters. I am all of that. You know, or you know, as I introduced you to, you know, the Durga archetype, you know, of the powerful, fierce feminine. So I want to work with soul brothers, you know, with guys. My work in the world, my dream of my work in the world is that I can take those brothers who do know that they are connected to the transcendent, but they're not living that in their day-to-day lives. They feel it comes in and out, and they know that they're meant for more. But they're not living that, just as I knew that I was meant for more. And I had this in and out connection with myself as transcendent, as connected to the transcendent, to the divine, to God. And so, yeah, my vision would be a community of soul brothers who are supporting each other in that aspect of their existence, that they can step into their larger life, what is true for them, through becoming connected to each other and the mutual support and love of that, and the connection in their heart to their own individual truth and expression of their divinity. And then also to support our sisters, so my work would be with the soul brothers.
Yes.
But daily I would seek to support our sisters, because it's a man who is deeply out of touch with his own power who's threatened by the power of another, be that another powerful man or a powerful woman.
Yes.
Right? But we can see each other as souls walking a soul journey, and sometimes for part of the way we can help walk each other home. And so if your journey home, brother or sister, is to be in your heart as a powerful creator, then part of your journey home is to also love and support another in their journey as a powerful creator. And so the more that we bring into the world of empowered humans, empowered men, empowered women, empowered trans people, non-binary people, whatever the journey, whatever the flavor of the journey is,
yes,
the more that we bring that into the world, the closer we become to a world in which all can flourish and all can find their best expression of them, of themselves, their best and truest, highest potential, to live their highest potential, to express all that's truly in their heart to be expressed out into the world in a way where they can live that larger life. I mean, the thing is that if you look back at history and you look back at your ancestral line, almost none of those people in your whole ancestral line, hundreds and thousands of people, got the chance to live a fully expressed life.
yes,
And you listening now have the chance and the opportunity to live a fully expressed life.
yes. It is such, yes, an opportunity for that right now. I have a couple things I want to say. I want to do a whole other podcast of what's going on in my head at the moment, but um, I was doing some reading last week on generations. Um, People that I've been speaking with, being Gen X and having aging boomer parents. I hear that's going on in my world personally, friends, clients, and so I was, just getting curious about what's out there in the world being written about what personal development or an underdeveloped personal development looks like as person ages, and what that looks like in family dynamics, and just so that's a little bucket of interest. But going back to the ancestral and the generational piece, I mean, we get the generation, this is something is newer to me, my enthusiasm about it, but it's you get those generational legacy burdens, but you also get the gifts. And I love what you just said about, it is so true that so many of our predecessors didn't have the lifespan, the resources, the freedom, if you will, to go to that level. So that's really a big to me, that's a very big statement. It's a very big opportunity. Yes.
Exactly.
Can you, because I know we're getting close to time.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I know.
We've barely begun.
I know. I would love for you to say, well, and I want to share with the listeners too, part of how we connected, right, was talking about the feminine energy and the masculine energy. And again, we could do a whole podcast just on that. But what I want to ask you to say a little bit more in a more granular way, if you can, how for men who are seeking, men who are open to an opportunity to further their personal development, and if they were to work with you, could you give them an idea of what the container or structure of that might be, what they might encounter, or any, I guess I have a follow-up question, so we'll go with that one, and then
Yeah, definitely. So I'll definitely say something about that. I'd say what I'd dearly love as an opportunity in this podcast is actually to share some wisdom that I got from a brother yesterday, because he's in a loving relationship, and he's a true soul brother. And I asked him, about modern relationships, and he gave me some real gold. So I just want to have the opportunity to briefly share that, because I think it's going to be really helpful for this conversation and for people. But yeah, working with me is coming back home to who you truly are. It's stepping outside of your ego, and it's coming back to your heart and discovering in your heart, discovering in your truth. That's where everything that you've been seeking is living. So it's learning how to connect through your own connection to the transcendent, to receive the wisdom, to receive the guidance. So what we do, this is structural work. When you're in your ego, you're in a problem orientation, and everything just needs to be fixed and made better, and then life will be wonderful. What working with me is like is to step into your creative orientation. And that really is, what would you truly love? And I will orient you and hold you to what would you truly love. So together we discover what it is you would truly love to express in the world and how you would love to live that.
mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the process is just like, okay, what do we need to do so that how it is now for you, when you're creating all of this, difficulty and challenge in your life, so to own the uncomfortable truth that you're not living the life that you desire, that you're meant for more, but you're not living it. To own the uncomfortable truth that you have made choices in your life. We're always creating. So you've made choices in your life that have brought you to this point. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's look at what you would truly love. Mm-hmm. Let's make sure that you're actually focused on what you would truly love, rather than focused on all the things you think you need to fix and do and be to have what you would truly love. Mm-hmm. And then when you're focused on what you're truly loving, and when you're choosing what you're truly loving, all this resistance will come up. I can't possibly be that. And my job as a coach is to use whatever means is coming to me in the moment through my training, through my intuition, to neutralize your resistance to being all that you can be. To continually just neutralize the resistance to you being all that you can be, to orient and hold and focus you on what you would truly love. Neutralize that resistance. Get what action is going to move you forward effectively to where it is that you would love to be in the world, the life that you would love to create. And then make damn sure that you do that action.
So I have a follow-up question for you. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. And I can't remember if we talked about this before or not, but I often get, when I work with clients, either the fix it, like something wrong with me, I need to be perfect, I need to fix it, I need to get my act together, right? Or the opposite. And so this is my follow-up question. What if they don't know? Because I don't know, like, yes. What is it you want? I don't, what is it you feel? I don't know. So I don't know if that's, if you've have a reference on it.
Oh yeah, big time.
Okay.
Big time.
Okay.
So the answer is, well, of course you don't know,
Love it.
because your ego only knows what it needs. Your ego, there's a state of tension that your ego is living under, and everything that you're doing and you're proposing is to resolve that state of tension, so that you feel in yourself that, you know, that your existence is going to continue. You're going to be able to get everything that you need in life, so that you can keep going, so the show can keep going. Your truth lives outside of all of that.
Yes.
And the portal for that, believe it or not, is to be as the child. Because just as the spiritual child is in touch with the transcendent, so too is your heart in touch with the transcendent, and your greatest truth and your greatest love and your greatest life lives in your heart, and your portal into your heart is and into your connection with your higher self is innocence, is to be as the child, is to see through the eyes of wonder and awe, where everything is fresh and everything is new. And if you step into that place, life changes, because you're not seeing it through the filter of everything that you need to fix and make better. You are in touch with reality. So this is what I would say very quickly. You, whoever are out there who say, well, I don't know what I want to do, you're not in touch with reality. You're in touch with how you think it needs to be. And if you can find someone to work with that can help you to stand in your truth, stand face to face with reality, something is there that's glaringly obvious. In fact, you already know. You're just editing it, and you've edited it your whole life. Because what do you love? Oh no, but I can't do that. I can't allow myself to have, no, I love it. No, I can't do that. You love it for a reason.
I'm smiling and looking at my notes because I had written down a couple of the things that you said in our conversation that I scribbled, and I think I typed correctly. I don't know, but allow the dream. To our head, it's complicated. To our heart, it's simple. And that's what I hear you saying. Yeah, we can get stuck in the commentary about what we should and shouldn't do and who will like it and what will happen, what won't happen, and dropping down to that. The heart, the truth, your true essence and spirit.
Exactly. I've got one word for you, right? One name. Siri Lindley. Siri Lindley, right?
Now, say more. I don't know.
Yeah. So Siri Lindley failed at the sport that was her chosen sport, which was lacrosse.
Oh, okay, great.
And so she thought, all right, what do I want to do? What's in my heart? Okay, what's in my heart is to be a world champion triathlete. There's only one problem. I'm 23 and I can't swim. She couldn't swim. She was still learning how to swim. She knew nothing about training. What was true for her in her heart was to be a world champion triathlete. Goodness only knows why the divine placed that seed of greatness in her heart, but it did, right? Now, most people who don't know how to swim very well, who can barely swim, who don't know how to train as a triathlete, who've never run a triathlon or never participated in a triathlon, wouldn't think, I'm going to go for being the world champion. Right? But she did, and she let nothing stop her. She was winning world races when she was 31, and when she was 32, she was the world champion. Right? So if you look at what you want through the lens of where you are, you will distort your life for the rest of your life. Do not look at what you want through the lens of where you are. It's a distortion.
Love
Don't
that.
believe it.
Yes. Yes. I feel like that should be freeze framed, put on a wall in a picture in quotes. Yes. So good.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
exactly.
I wanted to reiterate too, the piece about working with men. The men that I've worked with that have been, well, a lot of my clients are pretty high functioning, high achieving, right?
Mm,
Okay. And no surprise that high functioning, high achieving people can be just as lost as someone who does not identify themselves that way or appear that way. But some of the men that come to mind that I work with, it's been, when their marriage fails or they've achieved their goal in business, but they're no longer enjoying what they're doing. And they're having that crash course in identity. Like, I don't know, it didn't work, or it's not working. It doesn't feel as good as what I expected. I don't know where to, I think of the men I know that are divorced in middle age, completely unmoored. um, Plan A didn't work, or plan B. And so I don't know what to do. So that's kind of where that question came from, the I don't know. It
exactly.
feels so different from the I know what I want, but I don't believe I can get there.
Yeah. So here's the key. It's not personal, it's structural, which means that if you're in a structure in your own consciousness where you have what it is that you would truly love and a clear understanding of where you truly are, and you choose what you would truly love. I'm seriously, I'm 23, I can barely swim, and I choose to be a world champion triathlete.
Yes.
You choose what it is you would truly love. You focus on what it is that you would truly love. You neutralize all resistance to taking the action that moves you forward effectively. Do that, and your life changes. Because, as someone said recently, and this is a quote that is gold, success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. Siri Lindley's first triathlon was a disaster. People laughed at her. She was crying in her bedroom when she realized. She was so excited she finished, and then she was at home, and then she was looking back, and she was remembering all the people laughing at her, and what a disaster it was, and she didn't know what she was doing, and she's crying to her mother, and her mother said, "Oh, well done, dear, you did the triathlon, well done, you can leave it there." Success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm.
Yes.
So
yes.
just keep the focus on what it is that you would truly love. Neutralize the resistance that comes up inevitably, that's coming up from our ego,
It's
that's under
predictable.
tension. It's predictable. It's predictable. Exactly. So, your guys, your high functioning guys that are hurting in their hearts, the key is to actually allow your identity to change. Because your identity is what's holding you stuck. Your identity is, I need to be the powerful, successful businessman who's a provider for my family and a provider for all the people that in my business. My identity is that. I can't be having the identity of someone who paints in beautiful watercolors, these glorious scenes that come from God knows where. They seem to come from my heart, and there's all these pinks and blues and purples, and oh my God, I feel amazing. No, I'm the guy that provides, a living, that provides a support for my family and for for everyone that I care for. That's my identity. I can't be this guy. Allow your identity to change, and everything changes.
Yes, so I'll say this and then we'll wrap up. But I had a conversation with a colleague today. Someone that I used to work with reached out and has retired. And so we were talking about the journey after that. And he was reflecting on the work he used to do. And he's like, I have no felt connection to that person who used to have that role, serve that function, like,
Ooh.
yes. And he's like, so, just naming the transition from what you once were, once did, once was committed to, attached to, and that space in between feels so uncomfortable sometimes, but is necessary, for the next chapter.
Yes. And what you've named is what in our work, William's work, Chris's work, is called creative tension. So part of my role as a coach is to go, yes, there is tension. It's called creative tension. It's the difference between where you are and where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
But that tension is the engine that drives you to where you want to be. It's called the path of least resistance. You hold your focus on where you want to be. So look, here's a rubber band, yeah? So here's tension.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Here's where you are. Here's where you want to be. This is tension.
Mm-hmm.
Tension resolves along the path of least resistance. If I hold my focus here, this is my identity. I'm that guy, and this is all I can ever be. Your desired reality must resolve by coming back to your current reality, and you don't shift, or at best, you try to move to here, but your focus is too much here, and you're bouncing around. And I spent a long time bouncing around. So enough with bouncing around. If you hold your focus on your desired reality, not through the lens of where you are, but your focus is where you want to be, what you would truly love, the tension, creative tension, which we've just mentioned, can only resolve by your current reality moving to your desired reality, moving to what you would truly love. So there has to be tension in the system. There has to be a disparity, a disequilibrium between where you are and what you would truly love. There has to be, for that engine of tension, the engine of the resolution of tension, to move you to where you would truly love to be.
Yes.
So you have to stay with the tension, hang with the tension.
Yes. Yes. I'm thinking about I'm going to wrap up, but I'm thinking about your ebook. I read that, right? And so that's something I want the listeners, so next I'm going to ask you how people can find you and learn more about your work and what you're offering in the world. But one of the things that I know you share is your ebook. And so as you were describing the tension, I was reflecting back and remembering some of the pictures and description and narrative in there on that. And that could be its own podcast just on that little piece, right? Right. So, yes. So can you share a little bit more about how you like to connect with people if there were to check out your work or want to do coaching?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So we always take on a business name. We always write a book that is what we would actually just love to be true about ourselves. So my chosen business name is acceptyouramazing.com, because my journey through being a Buddhist monk, my journey through being a quantum touch practitioner, my journey through the work with Chris and William is, oh my God, humans are amazing. So I would just love for everyone else to be able to know that truth and learn that truth about themselves. You're amazing just as you are. there's such incredible gifts within you for yourself and for the world. So acceptyouramazing.com, ACCEPTYOURE, amazing.com. That's the best way to reach me. My contact details are there. There's also Instagram, Accept You're Amazing. So yeah, Instagram, and you can reach out to me on Facebook. Facebook, Jason Mark Glasson. Send me a friend request. Let's connect. Let's do that connection thing that Renee spoke about. So yeah, send me a friend request or find me through Instagram or the website, Accept You're Amazing, and the little ebook on Amazon that you referred to, just as you've said, just as I was just saying, it's what we would love for ourselves, so it's called Living Life from Love, authentically living your heart's truth. So if you go into Amazon and you look for Living Life from Love, those words, you have to put it in quotes because there's 2 million books about life and love and everything else. You'll find it there, Jason Mark Glasson, Living Life from Love, authentically living your heart's truth. And a lot of what I've spoken about here today in this lovely chat with Renee, it's all encapsulated in that little 60-odd pages of ebook, which Renee has kindly read and appreciated as well. And that'll help you to set forth on this journey of actually living what you would truly love. And wouldn't it be wonderful if that's what we were all doing?
No doubt. I love it. So the two things that I'll land on that have just made my heart happy and make me smile inside as we've talked today is somewhere in my marketing, I talk about if you want to live, love, and lead wholeheartedly, that's the work that I want to do. So I love that we've landed with the hearts. That's your work. That's my work. And we didn't know we'd connect that way, but that's happened, and it's happening. And then the other piece of what you're talking about, I don't think I shared this with you, but when I was trying to land on my business name, The Reset with Renee, I mean, brainstormed and obsessed about it and finally landed kind of on the one that got the popular vote in the reset. And so as you were talking, I just kept thinking, reset, reset, come back to your heart, reset. So, and then again, just to name what a gift it is to meet a fellow seeker and someone who can be vulnerable about their journey and their struggle and their life and their learning. And I so appreciate how freely you offer your time and energy, heart and resources with me and then with others. So I really thank you for taking the time to show up and hang with me today. And I'm excited for people to hear your words and your heart's intentions.
Absolutely. And that's it. That's 2 words that encapsulate everything and all of life's journey is show up.
Yes.
Show up for yourself, show up for others, show up for the world. That's all that you need to do. I hope that I've done that today, in service to the well-being and benefit and highest good and highest truth of others. Is just showing up here on this podcast and speaking and living from my heart's truth is me showing up. And so if I can just help another to show up, then that's a job well done as an expression of living this human journey. So thank you so much for the opportunity, Renee. Deeply appreciated.
Thank you too.